Hello and welcome to the COVID-19 pandemic update. I'm Kayode Okikelu. First, the highlights. The federal government condemns blacklisting of Nigeria by UK, Canada and a few other countries over the Omicron variant. The Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 holds national summits to plan for the next health emergency by drawing lessons from COVID-19. South Africa prepares hospitals for more admissions as COVID-19 cases surge. Well, thank you for joining us. We're in the final stretch of the year and the holidays are just around the corner. With the holidays come travel. I mean, lots of travel, both local and international. But travel these days is not as straightforward as it used to be anymore. Over the past few days, different countries have been internalizing the emergence of the Omicron variants quite differently, with some introducing drastic travel restrictions, which is now hurting thousands of travelers globally and straining diplomatic relationships. Today on the program, we'll analyze these travel measures and the science of it. But how about we take a look at the latest COVID-19 figures first? I'll be back.
55 additional persons in Nigeria have tested positive to COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the latest figures were reported from 6 states, indicating a drop from the figures reported earlier. Lagos logged the highest infections with 37 cases, followed by Edo with 6 cases, Osun 5, Oyo 4, Ogun had 2, while Ekiti registered 1 case. The new tally has increased the total confirmed cases in Nigeria to 214,622. 23 patients have been discharged in the last 24 hours, increasing the total number of recoveries to 207,450. There were no additional deaths resulting from COVID-19 complications in the last 24 hours, leaving the fatality toll at 2,980. Currently, there are over 4,000 active cases in Nigeria, more than 7 million eligible Nigerians targeted for COVID-19 vaccinations have received their first dose, while over 3.7 million persons have been fully vaccinated. In Africa, there are more than 8.7 million confirmed cases and over 223,000 deaths recorded across countries on the continent. The total global confirmed cases have surpassed 265 million, while deaths are beyond 5.2 million.
So the pandemic has kept us on our toes for close to 2 years, and in the midst of all the flurry, it's always important to pause and take a moment to evaluate our response and just how effective they have been towards achieving the goal of ending the pandemic by next year. And that's what the Presidential Steering Committee is doing at the National Summit on COVID-19 in the nation's capital, Abuja, an event being attended by the Senate President Ahmed Lawan, along with other federal lawmakers, including the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee, the Minister of Health, and members of the diplomatic community. Now, the 2-day summit will also discuss how to scale up the current responses to the pandemic, including ongoing mass vaccination, surveillance, and screening at various points of entry.
Due to the evolving dynamics of COVID-19 pandemic, with progressive mutations of the virus to more transmissible and deadly variants, the international community has corroborated the insinuation that the pandemic will persist for a few more years. This understanding has impelled world leaders recently to come to a conclusion that if efforts are not renewed and aggressive measures are not taken, COVID-19 pandemic will continue to ravage humanity well long than earlier envisaged. Hence the need to adopt an ambitious but cautious agenda to end COVID-19 pandemic by the year 2022. Consequently, this summit is a follow-up towards Nigeria's commitment to the ambitious global agenda movement to end the COVID-19 pandemic by the year 2022 and building back better. This summit promises to be very rewarding, and at the end, we are all expected to have carried out the following. 1, identified resources and developed strategies that will actualize the country's expressed international commitments towards ending COVID-19 by 31st of December 2022.
So while the elephant in the room, that is the recent travel restriction, was not quite discussed in that room, not too far away, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, didn't mince words as it condemned the blacklisting of Nigeria by the UK, Canada, and a few other countries after the discovery of the Omicron variant. Speaking at a news conference, the minister describes the red listing as unjust and discriminatory and called on the UK government to rescind its decision immediately, while noting that the Presidential Committee on COVID-19 is expected to come up with the federal government's position soon.
The decision by the British government to put Nigeria on the red list just because of less than 2,000 cases of Omicron, which, by the way, did not originate in Nigeria, is unjust, unfair, punitive, indefensible, and discriminatory. The decision is also not driven by science or common sense. How do you slam this kind of discriminatory action on a country of 200 million people just because of less than 2,000 cases? More importantly, whereas British citizens and residents are allowed to come in from Nigeria to Britain, non-residents from the same country are banned. The two groups are coming from the same country, but being subjected to different conditions. Why won't Britain allow people in both categories to come in and be subjected to the same conditions of testing and quarantine? This is why this decision to ban travelers from Nigeria who are neither citizens nor residents is grossly discriminatory and punitive.
So now the big question is, how and when is the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 planning to respond to the red listing by the UK government in particular? Well, we caught up with the chairman of the PSC, Mr. Boss Mustafa, on the sideline of that COVID-19 summit in Abuja, and this was his response.
The British government have decided to add Nigeria to the red list. We are reviewing that, we are looking at it, and Nigeria will respond appropriately. We would meet over it and look at all the issues that have been raised, and a response will come out of that.
So for some analysis of this recent development and Nigeria's COVID-19 response in general, we're joined by Professor Titus. He's a public health physician. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us, Prof, and it's good to see you again. So there's been the back and forth, as you may have seen, and I think that's a good place to start from. From a science perspective now, what does science really say about transmission and travel restriction? I mean, how effective is it in driving down infections? Because we've seen countries time and again putting in place travel restrictions.
Well, it's a very unfortunate situation, but the reality is that the different countries, I would say, are trying to be very protective, and all we can see is trying to be proactive, but sometimes to a fault, because this particular variant we're talking about, the B1529, otherwise called the Omicron, the details, features, the surrounding this variant is not yet very clear. It's still being studied even by WHO themselves. And I think the country that first picked up this variant should be praised rather than being vilified. You know, nobody has any evidence that it's actually originated from South Africa, but that it's originated from Nigeria. After all, this has been picked even in developed countries. Israel and several countries have picked this variant, even Canada. So what, you know, the world should be concerned with is expediting effort towards characterizing this variant so that the typical features will be known and its response to the current vaccine clearly defined, because we realized that it wasn't too long when one of the leading vaccine companies said they had preliminary evidence that there's some level of resistance to Omicron. But this is not conclusive. So the level of transmissibility, yes, has been established, you know, that it is high, but we also need to know how severe the illness that is associated with this particular variant is, which is part of what WHO is studying right now. And strictly speaking, how it influences, you know, the general atmosphere, you know, across the globe when you talk of health and science. So based on this, then, we should be able to look for measures rather than, you know, placing blanket bans across developing countries. But again, I think the developing countries should stop these unnecessary lamentations and look inwards. That should be able to tell us that nobody truly and strictly care about you. If you don't care about yourself and your own citizenry, nobody will do that. Everybody will go to any extreme to protect her own citizenry, which is what exactly is playing out now. You know, when United States and others will place ban on South Africa, and once we had evidence that the variant is here in Nigeria, what do you expect? Similar measures will be extended by the same country, because despite lamentations by South Africa, nothing has changed.
Right.
So I am not surprised that same is extended to Nigeria. Let's not forget that about a week ago, Ontario, Canada, the first 2 cases had travel history from Nigeria. So all these things put together is what is really playing out. But for me, I think WHO should try and expedite efforts towards characterizing this variant so that the scientific world will really know the typical features. Because going by what the South African physicians who managed the first series of cluster of cases are giving out, it appears is associated with mild infection. And if that is the case, then there's no need for this unnecessary panic here and there.
Well, Prof, you've pretty much...
we need to make...
pardon me, you pretty much covered some of this. Yeah, you pretty much covered some of the major points that have come up in recent times. But I mean, as it stands right now, the Delta variant is still responsible for over 99% of the cases we're seeing globally. So some say that that should be the focus for a lot of governments. But on a final note, as we wind down, I know you've spoken about vaccination time and again. The government says they're now looking for arms because they have enough vaccines. And I imagine with the mass vaccination campaign, with the vaccine mandate for civil servants, and some of these other measures that have been put in place, do you think that's enough to drive up our vaccination figures?
Yeah, recall last time when we had a discuss in your channel here, we pointed out some key factors that are very important towards scaling up, the vaccine intake. Provision of the vaccine is one thing, but again, enlightenment program so that the citizenry will embrace this vaccine is also very important. And as much as possible, making efforts to reach out to hard-to-reach areas, the hinterlands, and try to debunk some of the falsehood that will be making rounds, These are key elements, not just giving information that the vaccine is available, whereas people still have a lot of reservation towards taking this, will not be able to achieve so much.
Well,
so
Prof,
it takes two to tango.
You clearly have given us an action point.
And, yes.
You've given us an action point, and I think this is something we would have to take up with the government as well. I mean, taking a look at those hinterlands and ensuring that beyond those statements that are made, we ensure that we actually get penetration to that area. But I'd like to thank you so much. Time is never enough to speak with you. Professor Titus Ibekwe, public health physician. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, Kayode. Let it be on record that I'm also an ENT surgeon.
Oh yes, it's always tricky to call you otorhinolaryngologist. But
that is number one.
Yeah. I did that today. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
We'll go on a break now. And when we return at 400 GMT today, Nigeria was added to the red list in the UK. We'll get reactions from that country as well as what's happening in other countries in a moment. Please stay with us. Hey, welcome back. On the foreign scene, the Nigeria High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, Ambassador Fashola, has described restrictions imposed on Nigeria by Britain as travel apartheid. Well, his comments re-echo the position of the UN Secretary General, who has raised concerns over measures imposed by various countries against African nations. The ambassador spoke with our London correspondent, Juliana Olayinka.
The position of Nigeria is to align with the position of UN Secretary General that has classified the travel ban on Nigeria and some other African countries as travel apartheid. And Nigeria aligns absolutely with that, because what we're talking about, like I said, is not endemic. If the Omicron variant is endemic, that means it's peculiar to a few countries, then you can understand that. But as of today, the official confirmation of Omicron patients in Nigeria, we just have 3. And all over the world, we have so many countries that even have, 200, 300, 400% over that of Nigeria. Yet, they are not included in the ban list.
Well, Juliana joins us for more on this from London. Well, Juliana, thankfully, there's no restriction on video teleconferencing from Nigeria to UK. But, it's never the same as being there physically. So I can only imagine how families and businesses that are being impacted feel right now. But let's come down to the basics. Nigeria's government believes the decision by the UK is not based on science or even common sense. But from there, how easy was this decision for the UK government?
Hi, Kayode. Yes, fortunately, our discussion isn't banned as of yet. But no, look, I think the Nigeria High Commissioner, Ambassador Sharafa, was speaking really on behalf of the vast majority of Nigerians living in the UK. They're absolutely furious. I think many people, including myself, were taken by surprise when on Saturday evening we all got the alert and saw the breaking news from the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, that Nigeria would be added to this dreaded red quarantine list because of a handful of cases that had travelled back into the UK from Nigeria, had tested positive for this new strain of coronavirus, a strain that at the moment, according to the data we're getting out of South Africa, doesn't appear to be as deadly as the Delta variant, which, need I remind people, was once called the Kent variant because it was found in the UK. Now, there have been some tough words. I think, again, the ambassador took the same line as what we've heard from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, saying that, is this travel apartheid? I don't think the British government we're happy with that term. But, you know, people are asking, is it? Because, you know, we're seeing things on social media such as, is this xenophobic, colonial? Why is this happening to African countries when we know we've seen the data is public and it's available to everybody? Omicron is everywhere, it's all over the world, but yet Africa, at a time when South African scientists were able to identify such a key finding in this pandemic story, are we being punished like this? So it's not great. We are expecting an update from the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, any moment now. I'm sure, considering just how vocal Nigerians are in the UK, they will have to address this because this is the festive season, Kayode. You know, hundreds of thousands, if not up to 1 million people have been affected by this sudden decision.
I mean, big issues you raised there, Juliana. Ironically, there are over 200 Omicron cases in the UK as of this time, and it looks like the cases are increasing. And that's compared to 3 confirmed cases here in Nigeria. But I wonder if people in the UK who have families, you've referenced some of them, and businesses, are they on the same page with government on this? Do they feel that government is perhaps right on this one?
No, I don't think so. But I think we've got to be careful, haven't we? We've got to put some balance into this story. I think one of the balances is, let's look at America. You know, under former US President Donald Trump, he completely shut down the borders. The borders were shut to 26 EU countries, including the UK and Ireland and several parts of the world. That was closed for about 20 months. Were people calling that racist? No, it was just a system of trying to look after your citizens. So I definitely think, of course, you know, there is anger on both sides, but we do have to look at this in a more holistic approach. We know that this is going to be a 3-week review. It has been confirmed that, you know, these Omicron positive cases were passengers traveling from Nigeria. Now, before people complain, I'm not defending this, of course not, but that is a fact of the story. Have people been testing positive coming from France, coming from America, coming from other parts of the world, and a ban not being imposed on that country? I think then the story has more legs. But of course, people are absolutely furious. You know, there was a sold-out show from WizKid in the O2 last week. You know, many people traveled in from Nigeria for that show. Are they going to be able to get back from that? There are weddings, you know, this is the season, Kayode, where lots of people from the diaspora take off their wigs, you know, tie their wrapper. They want to be in Nigeria enjoying with their families, and many people can't do that because it costs a lot of money. You know, let's talk about the cost of this. Over £2,000 it costs to quarantine in these mandatory hotels. That's a lot of money. I can't do the translation into Naira now, but I know that that's potentially up to £1 million Naira.
Oh, that's even more.
If I'm even more than £1 million Naira, goodness, you know, if I'm not mistaken, and that's just for a single person. There's lots of trade. We know that UK and Britain have very, very strong economic times. This was a time for really that relationship to blossom in its fullest. So no, I think people are certainly angry, but I think in terms of diplomatic discussions, obviously the tension has to reside, and we have to think about how we can hopefully, you know, make the decision that the government do a U-turn. The British government are known to do U-turns. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson isn't afraid of that. So we urge, of course, the UK Health Ministry to reconsider this.
I mean, we wonder how close we are to that U-turn. But it's interesting, science meeting public opinion, diplomacy, politics, and the rest, and you just have to juggle all of that. But Juliana, we hope for the very best, right? Thank you so much for that update.
Thanks, guys.
Well, amid fears of the Omicron variant, President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa says hospitals are preparing for more admissions. Well, we have more on this and other developments around the world in our global update.
South Africa is preparing its hospitals for more admissions amid a 4th wave driven by the new variant. Omicron was detected in South Africa last month, triggering global alarm amid fears of a new surge of infections. South Africa's daily COVID-19 cases surged last week to more than 16,000 on Friday, up from roughly 2,300 on Monday. Over in the United Kingdom, an infectious diseases expert, Professor Paul Hunter, says Omicron could become the UK's dominant variant within weeks. He estimates it's likely that there are already more than 1,000 cases, 4 times more than officially confirmed. Thailand has detected its first case of the Omicron coronavirus variant in a US citizen who had traveled to the country from Spain late last month. The confirmed case and the man who had arrived November 29 makes Thailand the 47th country to have found the new variant. In other developments, Italy has beefed up its measures to curb a wave of COVID infections by introducing new rules that target unvaccinated people. Only those who have been vaccinated or recently recovered from COVID will be allowed to go to the theatre, cinemas, live music venues and major sporting events. And finally, children aged between 6 to 9 years old in the Philippines' capital of Manila have returned to school for the first time after nearly 2 years of online classes as part of a pilot scheme to resume face-to-face learning after the pandemic disrupted the education of 27 million students.
Well, visit our website, channelstv.com, for more updates and a better understanding of the pandemic, plus other stories, all at your fingertips. Well, that's the COVID-19 update. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Please remember to protect yourself.